It was the most vibrant, exciting literature I had ever read. In contrast to the English language literature I read from the United States and Britain, which seemed to be stuck in some sort of period where they were bored with all their comfort and couldn't find meaning. And when I read the writers from the British Caribbean, I started reading in English. I've read in French subsequently. I would like to read in Dutch. I've read some translations of Dutch. I find the same spirit. It's a very moving, inspiring way of looking at the world, that you can make a world out of such a horrible history. My original work, as Ronnie said, was in the rise of fascism in Western European literature, and I worked in German, French, and Italian. And I read a lot of race theory that mostly came out of France in the mid-19th century. And I was fascinated and shocked to see that anti-Semitism and a hatred of blacks was in fact joined in race theory in the mid-19th century. So I guess then I started thinking about what happened outside of Europe, what fascism, where it came from. Historians now talk about fascism, the fascist nations, mostly Germany and Italy, did a lot of imitating of what are called the old empires, France and Britain, and that the treatment of slaves and Africans fed strongly into the hatred of Jews. So I think that started there, and then moving from my love of Caribbean literature, I began to really question about slavery. When we discovered these collections, and that's about 7 years ago, I really began to read seriously, and I see it as how to say this, best kept secrets of the West is the power of the slave trade and slavery in shaping who we are. So.
Lastly, Dr. Cirillo, you spoke about the Caribbean literature. Aruba belongs to the Caribbean. Have you read, or is there enough literature available about particularly Aruba?
Not really. I've read some stuff from Suriname and Curacao, and I'm interested. Ronnie tells me there's some really good stuff in Papiamento and Dutch coming out of Aruba. This already, I think to myself, if I live forever, might be a fascinating project to see if we could get some translation going. I think that would be very important. The Netherlands figures prominently in the English-speaking world, although we rarely recognize that. And the Dutch-speaking Caribbean has always been seen as somehow different from the British Caribbean. A lot of this difference might be interesting to examine, and one way to do it always is through literature. So we need, here we go again, money, to perhaps begin to make it possible to commission translation so that Aruban and Dutch language and Papiamento figure with this tremendous body of French, Spanish, and English literature.